Hello Magic Gathering players, this is Maelstrom MTG. Today we have kind of a new thing that I can start now that we have a new set coming out. This is really the first set that's come out since I've started recording. I started recording shortly after the release of Kaldheim, but I kind of thought of doing a video like this, but really it wasn't for me until now. This is an interest list for budget players, where this is kind of like, with the new cards that are coming out, what to look for, what a player who is trying to keep to a budget might be interested in playing. So a few of these cards are over the budget that you would probably think for a card. Now for actual budget, my decks have to average, well, my original lists had to average a little over $1 per card, really like $1.33 I think it was, and you couldn't really go above that or else you wouldn't stick to the budget. But I do want to talk about a few cards. Really, the big outlier in this list is Harness Infinity, and that is a $7 card. We'll get there, but I'm really excited for a lot of the cards on this list, and I'm going to dive right in. So first up, we have Clever Lumamancer, and this is a card that's been gaining more traffic than I thought it was going to. I thought it was very powerful once I saw it. In Modern specifically, I'm not sure. I've watched a lot of videos. I've seen people playing this card. It's very powerful, but you just have to play removal in your deck. I know that's saying, oh, dies to removal, but really, the thing you have to understand is that Modern is such a removal-heavy format that a card like Clever Lumamancer might not make it. Excuse me. That being said, I've seen the turn 2 kills that this can bring out. If your opponent doesn't see it coming, or doesn't have the removal for it, then by all means, you could easily win before they have removal. Next up is Valentine, Dean of the Vein, and really, I don't care about the backside of this card. Some of these cards have meaningful backsides, but really, I don't care about the backside. It's decent, but really the front part is what I want. So 1-drop 1/1 Menace Lifelink Vampire. Once I saw Legendary Creature Vampire, I got excited. Okay, because as you can probably tell, I have a few vampire videos on this channel, and I saw vampire, so I got excited. Then it says, if non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. When you do, you may pay 2. If you do, create a 1/1 black and green pest. With when this creature dies, gain 1 life. This is awesome. This is a mini Kalitas. So if you're trying to play Kalitas Trader of Get on a budget, Valentine, Dean of the Vein is really where I think you want to go, because currently $267, and it's a 1-drop. It doesn't have the 2/4 lifelink body that Kalitas does, but Valentine, for that ability, that's amazing. It gets exiled no matter what, and then if you need the token, you can use your mana. But I think the real big winner for this is that it gets exiled whether or not you pay the mana. So it's a very powerful card, and even if it were just to be graveyard hate, it doesn't have to be aggro hate. Even if it's just graveyard hate, that's very powerful. I don't have to play Relic of the Progenitus anymore. Next up is Biograph, and I know this is super cringe to a lot of people, but I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of these cards are probably random cards that you might not expect to actually see on a list like this. And you might be like, oh, that card's bad. But I'm seeing a lot of potential in random cards. Now, for example, Biograph, it says it's a plant dog. Let me just say, that is not a dog, that is a bear. Anyway, it says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature or pay 3. Then it's a 5/4. Now, it's just a 5/4 with no other abilities, but sometimes that's enough. So if I turn 1 play a creature, and then turn 2 play this, to, like, that's a lot of value. It's just being able to turn 2 a 5/4. And the fact that some people might think that a turn 2 5/4 is, like, bad, is really, it really goes to show how our expectations have changed for Magic cards. But if you're playing Draft, for example, Biograph is 100% go for it. If you're playing Modern, I really want to see this. This really seems like it could be like a new Gurmag Angler. And it really seems like it could be like that. Next up is Conspiracy Theorist. I love that there's a card with this name. And it seems oddly specific, but like just vague enough where it could be used for some wacky combo. So it says, when it attacks, you may pay 1 if you and discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So you're constantly going to be discarding cards, draw more cards, and this is very good. I want to play this in some weird dredge deck, okay? And then says, whenever you discard 1 or more non-land cards, you may exile 1 of them from your graveyard. If you do, you may cast it this turn. So that's kind of like, that's the part that's weird, you know, because it's on attack, you pay 1 to cycle, and then whenever you cycle a non-land card, you can cast it. It's not even instant or sorcery, so it's really weird. But I think it's just specific enough where it could be used for some wacky combo. Next up is Dragon's Guard Elite with it's another 2-drop with, this is a new ability called Magecraft. And it says, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery you spell, you put a 1 counter on it. Now, you can also pay 6 mana to double the counters, but a 2/2 for 2 with Magecraft getting a counter, I feel like that's a good card. It might not make it in Modern. It could really see potential in Standard. I don't really pay attention to Standard, but I think Dragon's Guard Elite is something that people could look into. I definitely think that there are decks out there that could use this. I really think this is a card that people just need to put more effort into looking at, like, oh, what can we use to support this card? What can we use? I think this card has a lot of potential, though, but it could be a miss. Leona Lightscribe kind of reminds me of Clever Lumamancer, not as killable, and it buffs your entire team. So if you're going wide, and this is the kind of, like, if you're playing things like Lingering Souls, Raise the Alarm, the things that give you more creatures are also going to pump up your creatures. So that's the kind of deck this could go in, and I'm super excited for that. Next up is Shaled of Radiance. I know there are backsides to these cards, but the important part of this card that I'm really excited about is Shaled of Radiance, the front half. The back half does give you more options, but I'm really just talking about the front half here. Which is a 2-drop Flying Vigilance 1/1. I don't like that it's a 1/1. I wish it could have at least been a 1/2, but I understand because it also says tap, put a counter on each creature you control that entered the battlefield under your control this turn. And this is going to be a great way for us to just buff up our entire team. Now, I know maybe not our entire team, but like I was talking up here with Leona Lightscribe, Shale is going to give us the ability to just pump up our dudes a little bit, maybe get our Lumamancer out of Lava Dart range, you know? But tapping to be able to do that is very powerful, especially if you have the ability in, like, Raise the Alarm and Lingering Souls to be able to just put out a lot of creatures in one turn. Augmenter Pugilist is something, if I pronounce that correctly, Pugilist, whatever. I'm very, very interested in this card. It's a 3/3 Troll Druid Trample. As long as you control 8 or more lands, it gets +5/+5. There are definitely the ramp decks out there to make this card relevant, and it is sweet. And the back end says, pick a creature you control, and I think it's like all creatures you control become a copy of it. Have them all become a copy of this, and you win the game. Like, okay, not like win the game, but it's a game-winning card. Now, the next card might be really weird, and let me explain. Biomathematician. When it enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put a 1/1 counter on each fractal you control. If you do this in a flickering deck, you get a lot of power very quickly and a lot of creatures on the board. And so I think this is going to be a card that people might just look over, but if you use this card paired up with a lot of the cards that flicker things or bounce things, oh, you're gonna get a lot of power very quickly. I think that this is gonna be one of the most underrated cards, I think. Mavinda, Student's Advocate. Pay 0. I would not normally read the entire thing here because it's really wordy, but it's hysterical. Pay 0 mana. You may cast target instant sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If that spell doesn't target a creature you control, it costs 8 more to cast this way. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Activate this only once each turn. You're still gonna cast the spell. You're still gonna pay for it. But I think this is amazing. I think this is really something else because you're going to be... I think it's just super funny that you can just pay 0 and suddenly it goes from 0 to 8 mana. It's like they don't want to tell you can't do it, but they don't want to let you actually do it. So it's only be targeting your own stuff. But I saw this card and I immediately thought of Feather. So if you play this in a Feather deck, then you can definitely keep pumping up your creatures, and then you have a lot of recursion from your graveyard, and then a lot of rebound, and it gets even messier than it already is with Feather, and I think Mavinda could really add to the deck. Next up is Selflessglyph Weaver, which for it, actually, I will mention briefly the backside, but the front side says exile it, creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Now, we've had Selfless Spirit, but I think this is going to be a much more budget version of the card. Currently, it's 99 cents. It's going to go down when the card comes out, and I think that this is a very good card. It protects all your creatures, and in the late game, the backside is actually a board wipe. So I think that card is very powerful, and though it is a 3-drop, not a 2-drop, like Selfless Spirit, I think it still has a lot of value. Next up is the meme card. It's Demigod Titan. It's an 11/10 for 4 mana, and then whenever it attacks or blocks, sacrifice a creature. Now, we made Metalorc Colossus work, right? Like, we have a lot of ways to make these giant creatures that are seen as memes at first work and dominate. So I definitely think that Demigod Titan has a lot of potential, especially in a deck where you have a lot to sacrifice, like in a token deck, you know? And so I'm definitely looking forward to hearing about some wacky thing I hear in Standard where people try to play this and then say, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing the impossible," and then I'm over here, I'm just like, "Yep, Metalwork Colossus." I suddenly can't remember any of the other ones. The one like 9/10 vehicle, like there's a lot of stuff that you just you think is a meme at first, and then suddenly it's just very powerful very quickly. You could even fling this, you know. You could even fling this, sacrifice it, deal that much damage. It has more potential than it probably seems. I'll say that much. And it being a 4-drop is not half bad. Academic Probation. I think this is kind of a cheesy card, but it'll still be played. 2-drop. Choose a non-land card name. Your opponents can't cast spells with the chosen name until your next turn. Choose target non-land permanent until your next turn. It can't attack or block. Its activated abilities can't be activated. So it's kind of like, okay, you are going to stay put. You can't do it. So if you do this for Storm, they can't cast Grape Shot. If you do this for any of the any like I want to say like control decks, you can stop pivotal planeswalker activations, but there really aren't that many pivotal planeswalker activations in control unless it's a super close game. But honestly, I think it's going to be kind of a like, if your deck is like Ad Nauseam, I know Ad Nauseam saw a lot of hurt recently, but like Ad Nauseam, Grape Shot, any of those combo decks, you're not gonna. I think this is gonna be in there for that reason, to stop them. Crackle with Power is a card I'm really excited about, and recently, if you've been watching my videos, you saw a mono red Tron list. This arguably will take the place of either Banefire or whatever the big red card was that I could never get enough red sources for. I think Crackling with Power is a lot more reasonable because it's XXX red. Then it deals damage equal to 5 times. It deals 5 times X damage to each of up to X targets. So if I pay, let's say, 1, X equals 1 for each of these X's, then what's going to happen is I'm going to deal a total of 5 damage to one target. If I pay 2 for each of the X's, it's going to end up dealing 10 to 10 targets. That's a lot. And so it can scale really fast. And if my math is bad there, I apologize. I'm horrible at math. And if I failed at that, I'm so sad. But this could scale very quickly, and so I'm really excited to see this in like a Tron deck or a deck that just uses a lot of rituals really early to get a obnoxious win. Kind of reminds me of like a Storm deck. I really feel like this could be a way that Storm tries to win, but like Storm is already like very it's already very safe against counter spells, and Crackle with Power gets rid of that. I really like the idea of Crackle with Power with rituals. Next up is Flunk. It's a card I'm very excited about. Kind of like a Dismember's already kind of budget, but I'd say like a budget Dismember, arguably. It's a 2-drop instant. Target creature gets -X/-X, where X is 7 minus the number of cards in that creature's controller's hand. So if your opponent has like 1 card in their hand, 2 mana -6/-6. But it's gonna. I really like it because first few turns it's gonna get like -1/-1, -2, -2, -3, -3, and as it gets into the later game, they're gonna be running out of cards in their hand, but they're gonna be playing bigger things. And that means that you're going to be able to kill those bigger things for just 2 mana. So I really like Flunk. I love that it's an instant. If it was a sorcery, I would be questionable, but I would be questioning it. But I really like it. Next up is Fracture. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker. I think it's perfect. Instant speed. Love it. And it's going to be a very flexible removal card. Vanishing Verse, exile target monocolor permanent, instant, and it's basically the same thing as Fracture, but it's monocolor. If you're in Standard, I could see this getting rid of something like Embercleave, but I think this would be very good, even in the main board. I think both of these could see main board play, but Vanishing Verse is more likely to be main board, but it's just flexible removal. Which, talking about flexible removal, comes Witherbloom Command. Which, if you watch Nikachu, I guess his channel is Nikachu MTG, isn't it? Yeah, so if you watch Nikachu over at Nikachu MTG, I actually went and I was on one of his talk shows, and we talked about the commands when they came out, and I am excited about this card. Target player mills 3 cards. You can return a land from your graveyard to your hand, or destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less, or target creature gets -3/-1 until end of turn, or target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Like, if you think about it, if it's a 2-drop card, that means that they value each of those abilities at 1 mana. And I would take that. And it's 2 cards in 1. So you get 2 of those options. If I'm going against Merfolk, I'm using Merfolk because I just brought up Nikachu. I can destroy their Ether Vial, kill one of their creatures, and that's a lot of value. I'm very excited for that card. I'm just hoping it stays budget. I'm hoping that the mass pack opening is going to be what makes this budget. It could just shoot up in price, though. Basic Conjuration is a card that, if you can't afford cards like Collected Company, I know it's not as good, but it does give you that filtering. It says, look at the top 6 cards of your deck, reveal a creature from them, put it in your hand, and then rest them bottom in random order, and you gain life. So at least it gains you some life. I really like this. It's going to be a nice way to filter your deck. I think Winding Way might be a better card. Winding Way or Lead the Stampede. But Basic Conjuration is going to be a consideration in the future. Go Blank, it's in here just because I love the card. It does, like, it's bad in comparison to some other cards. Like, I don't think it's really going to be played. But, it looks quite fun. Because this is basically how you tell... This is how the rack... Like, this is how an 8-rack player tells the opponent that they don't get to have any more fun. Because, yes, I made you discard all your cards, but now they're all exiled. So, this is kind of just a better mind rot. And I relate so much with the flavor text. The only feeling worse than not knowing the answer is the certainty that you once did. The number of times I have gone into a test and I'm like, okay, I know this. And then I just stare at this problem for like 5-10 minutes. And I'm like, I knew it. At one point, I knew it. So I relate on a very deep level with this card. Next up is Prismaria Command, and I don't want to go over everything it does, but it does basically a lot of is it things that you would imagine. The reason I'm not going to go in very much is because we are running pretty late for recording time. But this card, I think it could bring back Is It Phoenix. I think it has that kind of potential. I look forward to seeing if this is played in that deck, and that's about all I have for the card. I think it's really powerful. I think it's basically what Electrolyze wanted to be. And Electrolyze had its purpose, but I think that Prismaria Command's more of a modern card. Culling Ritual is a 4-drop, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. Add green or black for each permanent card destroyed this way. This is going to be a ramp card, but it's also going to be a board wipe of sorts. Especially in Modern, because that's going to kill basically anything. There are going to be some things that it doesn't deal with, but this is a big card for dealing with a lot of the cards that we have in the metagame currently. Then we have Harness Infinity. Exchange your graveyard and your hand. Exile a Harness Infinity. I love this card. I don't know the lore, so it's probably some super like thematic moment. But I think this is just such a power move, just to swap your hand in your graveyard. And there are definitely a lot of ways you could cheat with this, where there are cards that say like cast something without paying its mana cost, and you can definitely get Harness Infinity like that. So I'm really excited to see what wacky decks we see with this card. It's probably going to be a combo piece. Next up are the lands. We have Necroblossom Snarl, which I'm not the biggest fan of the reveal lands, or Shadowlands as some people call them. I don't like to call them Shadowlands because Shadowlands sounds like an actual card, like Shadowlands sounds like it would be like a white-black land or something. Anyway, but the Shadowlands from here and Shadow over Innistrad are, like, they're good for budget, but if you have the opportunity to play something like a Pathway, please play the Pathway. It's going to be a lot better because you don't have those awkward moments where it enters tapped. But it does have its value. I am still excited that we get to finish the cycle. Then we have Prismaria Campus, a glorified tap land. So it enters the battlefield tapped, right? It's like a guild gate, but you can also pay 4 to scry 1. Now, it feels weird for me to say that I feel like I could even play this in a non-budget deck. I could play this in a deck where, like, I almost want to play Castle Vantress, but I can't, like, quite play Castle Vantress. I don't know if that's clear, but being able to scry with your land adds a lot of utility. Anyway, that is the list of cards I'm interested in Strixhaven. I left out some cards like Professor Onyx and Professor Onyx and Professor Onyx. I really like Professor Onyx, and I'm definitely going to try to do a deck, make a deck with her, but I don't know. I don't think she's going to really be a budget card. She could be just from sheer print quantity, but I wanted to focus on cards that budget players could play. And so I'd say my number one card out of this list, though, my number one card, I really want to say is Biomathematician. I'm very excited for that card. I think I'm going to have way too much fun with this card, and it's probably honestly going to be a bad card, but I'm not going to stop me from playing it. Like, I know I just said it's probably going to be a bad card, like, how I use it. Like, if you watch me try to play it, I'm going to mess up, for sure. But play this in some flickering deck. It'll be how you win the game, I swear. Anyway, kind of like the ooze that made other oozes. Like, that was the win condition for a deck for a while. It's kind of like that. Anyway, if you liked watching this video, if you thought some of the cards I pointed out are bad or odd, let me know down below. I'm more than willing to talk to you about it. I basically saw, ooh, pretty, and put it on the list. Because there's some things that in here that probably won't make it, but honestly, like Biograph, I'm excited. There are a lot of cards in here that I am just excited to see played. Anyway, tomorrow is pre-release, so hopefully I'll have time to do a little recording tomorrow, maybe do a little celebration of the pre-release, and I will see you next time.